Okay, this is another silly little example based off the previous example. So let me show you what it does. I'm gonna double click on the form so I can just get to the form stuff. Sometimes I do usually do that honestly instead of going to view code. I should just memorize F7, but if you double click on the form, it'll take you to the form load, right, which is inside the form. So it's a quick way to see what's there. Anyway, so I've got these two fields or private instance variables that I've added to the class. So keep in mind, again, your form is a class. That's the basic organization for a Windows Forms project. Later on in Lab 2, you add more forms as well. So we're about to learn how to do that in the coming chapters. But for now, like these first ones, remember everything is inside of a class, so you can have fields for your class as well across your form. So what you want to imagine is in this design, there's like instance variables or fields this thing can have. So I added a program start and an end start. Really, it should say start time and end time. Those have been better names. As a matter of fact, I've changed my mind. So what do? I highlight this, hit F2, and then type start time. Don't forget this is a thing you can do, refactoring. I'm going to do it for this one too. Better name, F2. Just start typing what it should be. It should be end time. Not the end times, but well, kind of feels like it right now, but yeah. So it changes it everywhere it needs to change it throughout your program. All right, so I have a start time and an end time, and then when the constructor for the form is called, remember this is a constructor. See, no return values, is public by default. There are occasions in object-oriented programming where you have private constructors because you have like a subclass inside of a class. We're not doing anything that fancy yet, so just get used to it being public. So public, no return value. The name of the form is the name of the class. Don't forget those rules. Those are always asked on like exams about object-oriented if you want to take a certification or something. It's also asked on tests a lot in class. Okay, so that's the constructor. What's the constructor do? It does some stuff for like making sure the controls and stuff are correct on the form. That's this initialized component. You can go see what that does if you want. But after that's done, what I do is I set the start time to the end time to now. I put the end time in there, just give it a default initial value. It doesn't really get used, but the start time does. So when I run the class, when I double click to start the project, when I click the project to start it, the form will load into memory, and the first thing it'll do is it'll do what it was doing before. I just left that in there, and then it also will assign to the text property of a label that I have on my form the start time in time, and not in just date, but in time. So you don't actually see this on the design because I just made the text property nothing, but there is a label here. It's around about here. There's a label called start time. There it is. You can see it now. So when I run the program, it just tells me the current time, which is simple enough. You know, it's not very pretty. When you turn stuff in, you should make it look pretty, right? I don't bother when I'm doing demos, but I really probably should. So this is a short time, right? 2:20 p.m. It looks like it doesn't do military time by default, just the PM AM. All right, and then when I click in program, let me just show you what's going to happen. It's going to have a message box that says the program ended at 2:20. It's still 2:20, so that's what it's going to say. And then I click OK, and the program ends. Technically, it had not ended yet, technically, but we can pretend that that's what was going on. So how do I do that? If you double click on this button, it takes you to the event handler. It's just closing, right? But if you look at the form itself and its events, and this is something I added, and you guys don't really know how to do this yet, I don't think. I've got the form load event, which you already know about, but there's also an event called form closing. So, and I added an event handler for that. So form closed is also an event once it closed. Now, typically, in this case, we only have one form. So when the form closes, the program would end. I don't think you can do much with closed. If you had a multi-form program, though, you could handle a closed event. But closing means I'm about to close, but I'm going to do some stuff right before this form goes out of memory. And this is what it does. It makes a message box that says the program ended at end time dot short. Yeah, well, first, I was like, I got to reset the time somehow. I set it to the current date time now, to end time. And then I print out the program ended at whatever this just got as its value. So I should probably run it again and like pause and wait a minute to show you that it actually works. I think is that all I need? Yeah, so the reason why this works is because the thing is, when you click on this button, it's this.close, right? Normally it would just close right away, even if you did this stuff right here. But messagebox.show is a modal kind of thing. In other words, it comes up and it waits for, it's not even modal, it's just a method. This .show is a method that returns a value. We haven't been doing anything with the return value now, we've just been ignoring it. But regardless of that, it's waiting for you to click OK. When you click OK, then this method show completes and it goes to the rest of the method, which there's nothing, there's nothing here, so it just exits the whole program after it returns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this again and pause, and then I'll show you. All right, it's been a couple minutes, so you can see how this works. So the program ended at 2:25, right? So that's that. I think I'm going to end this one as just another kind of silly example. This is mostly still just using DateTime now, though you did see that you can have two different times. If I printed out start time right here as well, you would see that start time would still be the time that the program started. It saves that time. So it's not always about the changing time to now, right? It's about saving that time as a variable value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video, and then I'm going to show you more about actually saving specific times.